Okay, hello ladies and gentlemen, Forrest over here and welcome back to another reading live stream. Today we are continuing the reading of Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford. If you haven't seen the first part, you probably should watch that before you watch this one. Um, because there's gonna be some parts to it that you're not gonna understand. You're probably not gonna understand without watching that part first. Um, But I would currently say if you are under the age of 13, you probably might want to set this one out because this is going to delve into serious topics. Probably. It's likely going to. I mean, given the title of the book. But in any case, I also did want to show some stuff, but I'll do that at the end of the live stream of the reading. At the end of the reading. So without further ado, so for this part, I'll be reading days 10 through 18, and we're gonna see how long let's see how long we go with that. So, if you've seen part 1 already, good. If you haven't yet, probably should watch that before watching this one, even if you are very late to the party after the fact. Either way, whether you want to watch that part or not, or if you want to watch this one, then watch that one to understand what's going on. It's all up to you. But at the end of the day, if you want to listen to this reading, sit back, relax, sit back, relax, uh, or if you're probably tired and you want to fall asleep, I guess you can make this an ASMR type of thing for you. I guess I don't know. Either way, without further ado, let's get started with day 10. Day 10. Excuse me. Day 10. I couldn't sleep again tonight. I don't know why. I'm pretty used to functioning without the little blue pill now, and it wasn't like I was having bad dreams or anything. I just couldn't sleep. So I went into the lounge, thinking I might finally write Allie that letter after all, or maybe help Nurse Moon with her crossword. But Sadie was in there, sitting on the couch and reading a magazine. Don't you ever sleep? I asked her. Did you know that only about half the eggs that get fertilized ever actually turn into babies? She said, putting down the magazine. And out of those, only about 80% are actually born. The rest get miscarried. She counted on her fingers. That means out of 100 fertilized eggs, only 40 are ever born. Those aren't the best odds, I said. And that doesn't include the ones who are born with defects, Sadie added. That's something like another 10, so ultimately, we only have about a 30% chance of coming out with no defects. I guess it depends on what you consider a defect, I told her. She nodded. If you look at it that way, there's like a zero chance of being born normal. But think about it. Right from the start, the odds are against you. It's kind of amazing that any of us ever get here at all. Sort of makes you feel even worse about trying to kill yourself, doesn't it? I said. Sadie shrugged. "Hmm, I haven't thought about it like that," she said. "But yeah, I guess it does in a way." Are you sorry you tried? I asked her. She looked out the window. It was snowing. Not hard, just a few flakes. If I had been at home, I would have been hoping for it to turn into a blizzard so that school would be canceled. But when you're locked up, blizzards don't mean much. I don't know if I'm sorry or not, Sadie said. If I hadn't tried, I'd probably still be sitting around in my bedroom being miserable and writing bad poems. I don't think most people would consider that a good deal, I said. Maybe not, she told me. What about you? Are you sorry you did what you did? I'm sorry they stopped me. Hey, Lion Blade, how you doing tonight? I'm sorry they stopped me, I told her. What's so bad about your life? She said. From what you've told me about your family, they don't sound so bad. They're not, I admitted. They aren't the problem. Then what is? Doing good, you? I'm doing pretty well, thank you for asking. Then what is? I am, I said. I'm the problem. And what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong, I said. I'm just complicated. Sadie rolled her eyes at me. Everyone thinks they're complicated, she said. But actually, there are only a couple of things you can have wrong with you. Which one did you get? Low self-esteem? Fear of failure? A martyr complex? Trust me, after 3 shrinks and a couple of visits to this place, I'm an expert on all of them. I was surprised to hear her say that. I didn't know she'd been in the hospital before. I thought this was your first time here, I said. Second, she said. The first time it didn't take, so they sent me back. But we're not talking about me, we're talking about you, so talk. I have a better idea, I said. Let's watch some TV. I turned the set on and flipped around. Finally, I settled on the Lifetime channel, which is always guaranteed to have on some completely idiotic movie about a girl with anorexia or a woman who gets amnesia and forgets she has an evil twin, or maybe even a family who hires a really creepy babysitter who ends up stalking them. Okay, before we continue with this bit, I just want to point something out here. 2 movies in mind. Like, 2 movies in particular come to mind. Alright? So you got movie about a girl with anorexia, or something to that effect. First movie that popped in my mind was Odd Girl Out from 2005. If you haven't seen it, I honestly recommend it. It's one of my favorite. It's one of the few Lifetime movies I've actually enjoyed watching when that movie came. I don't know what it was about that movie, but that movie made me like the movie preview of that movie when the ads for it to hype it up was coming out. It made me want to watch the movie, so I watched the movie and I'm like, damn, this is some real shit right here. Of course, I didn't say shit because I was 10 years old, but you get what I'm saying. It's a really good movie that talks about how high school can be for certain people, and funnily enough, a family who hires a creepy babysitter who ends up stalking them. That almost sounds like the movie The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. If you know, you know. Anyway, getting back to the book. And sometimes you hit the jackpot and end up with a movie that has all of those things in it. And believe me, a movie about an anorexic twin with amnesia who hires a psychotic babysitter is not to be missed. Want to play the dialogue game? I asked Sadie. Wrong character for us. Let's try that again. Want to play the dialogue game? I asked Sadie. You're on, she said, and I turned the sound off. We sat and watched the movie for a few minutes until we had the main characters figured out. One was a teenage girl and the other was an older woman who seemed to be the girl's mother. They were in a diner, eating greasy burgers and arguing about something. Makes you wonder what kind of movie that is. Makes me think about the movie The Babysitter. Yep. Netflix. But that's not really something I would think that Lifetime would put on their TV show. I would expect something like Chiller or the equivalent of Chiller to have that on that channel. Something like Lifetime, I don't think so. That's why I said The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Because I feel like that movie would be more Lifetime than The Babysitter. Anyway. I'll take the mother, Sadie said. Allison, I know you're keeping something from me, she said in what was supposed to be a motherly voice. Allison is Allie's real name, and for a second I wondered if Sadie had picked it on purpose. But there's no way she could know about her. It was just a freaky coincidence. What makes you think I'm hiding something? I said, trying to sound like an annoyed teenage girl. I found your diary, said Sadie, and I read it. How could you? I said. I had to, Allison, Sadie continued, and I'm glad I did. How else would I have known about what? I demanded. What do you know about Chris? Said Sadie. That's right, I know about Chris. I was going to tell you, I said. Sadie shook her head. I'm so disappointed in you, Allison. How could you not tell me? I'm your mother. If you're seeing a boy, you should talk to me about it. Chris isn't a boy, I said, surprised to hear the words come out of my mouth. Sadie turned and looked at me. What? She said. Chris isn't a boy, I repeated. Chris is a girl. Sadie cracked up. I didn't see that one coming, she said in her real voice. Good twist. I thought she was just going to be knocked up. Yeah, well, you can't go wrong with a teenage lesbian storyline, I said. Had enough? Sadie nodded. I think we worn this one out. Besides, I'm kind of tired. I'm going to bed. What about you? I'm going to stay up for a while, I said. I'll see you tomorrow. After Sadie left, I just sat there looking at the television screen. The sound was still off. In the movie, the girl and the woman had gotten into a car and were driving somewhere. They were still arguing. I watched their mouths moving without any sound coming out. And the more I watched them, the more I thought that's exactly how most people are. They move their mouths, but nothing important comes out. They just talk and talk and talk. That's what Cat Poop wants me to do. Talk. But like I keep telling him, there's nothing to say. Oh, well, Chris is a girl. Okay. To paraphrase people in regard to, that's some sort of M. Night Shyamalan type of twist when you think about it. You know, it's that type of twist where you think, okay, they're talking about a boy, Chris. Alright, okay, whatever. Then next thing you know, Chris isn't a boy. What? Chris is actually a girl. Okay, I did not see that one coming. I'm loving this story. I like this story. It's got the serious moments and it's got its serious moments, but also its funny moments. And we just had a really funny moment there, right there. Alright, okay, so there's a word in this first paragraph that I'm gonna talk about when I get finished with the paragraph. So that way people don't get any wrong ideas immediately, alright? Day 11. Oh man, was today weird. The freak show to end all freak shows. It started at breakfast. Today was Pancake Day, which we have once a week, and everyone was pretty stoked. It's totally queer to get excited about pancakes, I know, but compared to oatmeal and dry scrambled eggs, pancakes are a big deal. So before we continue with this story, I'm just going to state for the record, the reason why people might look at this and think of how it's referring to modern day type of lingo. In this situation, I feel like queer is actually meant like how it originally was defined. Queer in the old terms was another word for weird. I would know this because I have an old book up here. Up here, behind this stack of books, there's a door right up here behind these books. I'm trying to point at them right, but whatever. But yeah, behind these books there's a door, and it has some of the older books that I have in my possession. And one of them does have the word queer in it, but it's obviously meant to mean weird and not what it means, what most people use it to mean nowadays. Just so we understand each other, okay? Okay. Getting back to the story. There was sausage, too. That's what started it, the sausage. See, we were all eating, minding our own business and getting lost in the whole syrup sugar rush thing, when all of a sudden Alice picked up a sausage and started waving it around. She looked like she was conducting an orchestra, moving that sausage up and down as some music only she could hear. The sausage symphony and nut job flat, I guess. Then she started talking. This little piggy burned up, she said. This little piggy burned up. This little piggy went wee 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 all the way home. Then she laughed. A weird little laugh that sounded like she was strangling. Juliet was sitting next to her and she tried to put her arm around Alice and calm her down. But Alice yelled, "Don't touch me! Don't touch the little piggy! I'll burn you up!" Then she giggled some more. I'm telling you, it was totally bizarre. By that point, the nurses had come out and they were trying to calm Alice down. But the more they touched her, the more she yelled. She just kept yelling, "This little piggy burned up! Wee wee wee! Wee wee wee!" The rest of us just sat there and watched. I mean, what else are you going to do? She was totally losing it right in front of us. Wee wee wee! Wee wee wee! And she really did sound like a pig. Like she was on fire and squealing in pain. No, I'm not going to do a pig sound because I suck at making pig sounds. Just so we're clear. You're great at storytelling. Thank you, Lion Blade. I appreciate that. The nurses finally had to call one of the orderlies to come help them. He pinned Alice's hands behind her back, but she kept right on screaming, "Wee wee wee!" Only now she was sort of crying, laughing, like she'd completely lost her mind. They dragged her out of the room. Her hair was all wild because she kept shaking her head from side to side. "All the way home," she was saying between squeals. "All the way home." The weirdest part was that after she was gone, everyone else just went back to their pancakes like nothing had happened. I guess maybe it didn't seem like a big deal because they're crazy too. Maybe this kind of thing happens all the time, but not to me. "What was that?" I asked Sadie, who was sitting across from me. She shrugged. "Who knows?" she said. "She just snapped." "Just like that?" I said. "Sure," Sadie said, like she knew all about it. "The last time I was here, a kid woke up one morning and thought he was Santa Claus. He came out with this pillowcase full of stuff he'd taken from his room and started handing things out like it was Christmas morning." Next to her, Boone laughed. "That's excellent," he said. "It's weird," I said, looking at Bone. "It occurred to me today that I have no idea why he is here. I'd ask him, but I really don't care. Besides, there's enough weird to go around as it is. He can keep his to himself." "Whatever," said Sadie. "Anyway, don't rub her up and she'll forget all about it." She picked up a sausage and wiggled it at me. "Wee wee wee," she said. "Wee wee wee." Bone cracked up. "Wee wee wee," he said, joining in. At first I thought it was kind of mean of them to make fun of Alice, but it wasn't like she was there to hear them. And anyway, maybe that's how nutcases handle things like that. I wouldn't know. Only Juliet didn't laugh. She just sat in her seat, picking at her pancakes. She had a blank expression on her face, like she was trying really hard not to think about anything at all. Later on, in group, Cat Poop talked about what had happened. "Is Alice all right?" Juliet asked him. It was a stupid question. Of course she wasn't all right. She was nuts. But Cat Poop knew what Juliet wanted to hear because he said, "She'll be okay." "Okay? How can she be okay? She set her mom's boyfriend on fire after he did who knows what to her. She's in a mental hospital, and she thinks she's the piggy who went wee 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 all the way home. That's pretty much the definition of not okay." I shook my head. "Are you concerned about Alice, Jeff?" Cat Poop asked me. That was a good question, I'll give him that. I mean, Alice and I weren't friends or anything, but I did feel a little bad for her. After all, it's not her fault she's nuts, right? She had a lot of bad stuff happen to her. But like I said, we weren't friends. "I just want to make sure that what she has isn't contagious," I told Cat Poop. He pushed his glasses up, so I knew he was annoyed at me. "I think you know the answer to that," he said. "It's a good question, though," said Sadie. "What if Alice had some sort of virus or something that went to her brain?" I looked over at Sadie, wondering if she was being serious. She winked at me. "Alice doesn't have a virus," said Cat Poop. "But there are viruses that can make your brain go all weird, right?" Sadie asked him. "Like Mad Cow." He sighed. Yes, there are, he said, but no one here has a virus. I gave a fake sneeze. Oh, uh-oh, I'd said. I think I'm coming down with something. Then I went. I think it's Mad Piggy! Wee wee wee, Boone said. Catpoop looked at him. Wee wee wee, Boone said again. I think I'm coming down with something too. Then Sadie started. She fake sneezed and said, wee wee wee, along with Bone. The two of them were trying really hard not to crack up, and so was I. Then Juliet stood up. Shut up! She screamed at us. Shut the hell up! We did shut up. She's never yelled like that, and it took us by surprise. Juliet glared at us, her hands clenched and her whole body shaking, like she was trying to make our heads explode using the superpowers of her mind. I hope I did not wake anybody up with that shouting. Jeez, man. Stop making fun of her, she said really softly. Just stop. It's not funny. Then she sat down again and looked at the floor. Maybe she had a point. But come on. Someone yelling about being a little piggy going wee 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 all the way home. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Sure, I feel bad for Alice, but that's no reason to go all serious. You've gotta laugh at stuff. Anyway, I'm not like Alice. I'm not like the rest of them either. So excuse me if I get a little sarcastic about it when they do something muddy. I probably woke up your whole. Hey, if they woke up and be like, go to your room. If someone goes to your room and be like, dude, I heard shouting in here. What's going on? Be like, my friend was reading a book and he just happened to scream so loud that it woke you up. Just say that. Fuck it. Why not? Anyway. Anyway. But now that we had the laughs, we have to be serious for a moment. Because day 12. Alice is gone. Bone told us this morning over breakfast. They shipped her out to Morningview, he said between bites of cereal. I heard the nurses talking about it. What's Morningview? I asked. It's where they send all the nuts who are never going to get better, Bone told me. She's a lifer now. I guess she weed herself all the way to a padded cell. And then there were 4, said Sadie. I looked at her. What? And then there were 4, she repeated. You know, from the nursery rhyme. She started to recite in a sing-songy voice. 10 little soldier boys went out to dime. 1 choked his little self, and then there were 9. 9 little soldier boys sat up very late. 1 overslept himself, and then there were 8. 8 little soldier boys climbing up to heaven. 1 fell down, and then there were 7. 7 little soldier boys chopping up sticks. 1 chopped himself in half, and then there were 6. 6 little soldier boys playing with a hive. A bumblebee stung 1, and then there were 5. 5 little soldier boys on a cellar door. 1 fell in, and then there were 4. She stopped. It goes on until they're all dead, she said, spreading butter on a piece of toast. But right now we still have 4. What happened to the other 4? Bone asked her. Sadie took a bite of toast and grinned. We'll have to see, she said. You guys are sick. You guys are sick. It was Juliet. She was sitting a few seats away, her eggs and bacon getting cold on her plate. She hadn't touched them. She was looking at us, and all of a sudden she started to cry. Why do you have to be so horrible? She said. Sadie put her toast down and wiped her mouth on her napkin before answering her. Maybe because that's how we deal with it, she told Juliet. Juliet shook her head. You're all just afraid, she said. You're afraid you're going to end up like Alice. I'm not, I said before I even realized it. Everyone looked at me. I'm not going to turn out like Alice, I repeated. You already are like her, Juliet said. She was staring at my hands, which were resting on the table. Actually, she was staring at my wrists, which were still bandaged. You just don't know it yet. I put my hands on my lap. What I know is that nothing was going to stop Alice from being crazy, I said. And what's going to stop you? Juliet asked me. To tell the truth, I was getting a little creeped out by Juliet. At first, I thought she was just delusional, with the whole sex and violence thing and her crush on Bone. But now I think there's something even more wrong with her. It's like she thinks she can see inside people. She just comes out with this weird stuff, and you can tell she really believes it. Well, she's wrong about me. She can stare all she wants, but she's never going to see inside me, because there's nothing in there. Everyone could tell that Alice was Looney Tunes. I'm not blaming her for that or anything, but she was. I, on the other hand, pretty much just had one bad day, and now everyone is making me pay for it. Don't listen to her, Sadie said. I guess that she's the next to go. She gave Juliet a look. How's it going to happen, Juliet? She asked. How are you going to go? Juliet stood up and slammed her chair against the table. As she stormed off, Sadie and Bone laughed. After a second, I did too. That child is out there, said Bone. Seriously, Sadie agreed. I wonder what she's in here for. That whole bulimia story was a crock. She told me, Bone said. I guess she thought it might make me love her or something if she shared. He rolled his eyes. So, Sadie said, out with it already. What's little Miss Juliet's curse? She's a junkie, said Bone. Get out, Sadie exclaimed. Bone nodded. No, she is. She was all into heroin and stuff, and then she OD'd a couple of times. Wow, Sadie said. I'm actually kind of impressed. I thought for sure she'd been into something really girly like cutting herself. Then she looked at me and said, no offense. I didn't even realize there was a ranking, I said. Sadie frowned. What do you mean? A ranking, I said. You know, what's crazier than what? Oh, sure there is, Sadie said. She sat back in a chair. First you have your generic depressives. They're a dime a dozen and usually really boring. Then you've got the bulimics and the anorexics. They're slightly more interesting, although usually they're just girls with nothing better to do. Then you start getting into the good stuff. The arsonists, the schizophrenics, the manic depressives. You can never quite tell what those will do. And then you've got the junkies. They're completely tragic because chances are they're just going to go right back on the stuff when they get out of here. So junkies at the top of the crazy chain, I said. Sadie shook her head. She said. Suicides are. I looked at her. Why? Anyone can be crazy, she answered. That's usually just because there's something screwed up in your wiring, you know? But suicide is a whole different thing. I mean, how much do you have to hate yourself to want to just wipe yourself out? Maybe that's just about wiring too, I suggested. I guess sometimes, Sadie agreed. But sometimes it's more than that. I don't know, Bone said. I don't see anything so special about wanting to kill yourself. When we didn't say anything, he looked up at us. Not that I've ever tried it, I'm just saying. You're just saying that because you never tried it, Sadie said. She was quiet for a minute and her eyes got this faraway look in them, like she was remembering something wonderful. You don't know what it feels like, she continued. You don't know what it's like to make that decision, to go from thinking about it to doing it. Most people can't do it. So you're saying you should get first prize because you did it? Bones said. He laughed. You're crazy. Sadie looked at him. That's exactly what I am, she said, then laughed. But I'll have to share that prize with Jeff. She looked at me. What? I said. You win too, she said. You try to kill yourself too. I knew everyone had been thinking that. I mean, how could they not? What with the bandages and everything? But hearing Sadie say it out loud was kind of a shock. I shook my head. I just did something stupid. Sadie turned away. Sure you did, she said. I couldn't tell if she was making fun of me or not. I sort of don't think she was. And I don't think she wants to share her prize with me. She wants to be Queen Whack Job around here. Or maybe she knows that I'm not like her and the rest of them. I'm not one of her 10 little soldier boys. Day 13. One day later, and we're back to 5. It's like there's a line of crazies outside, and as one of us leaves, they let in another one. Like at those supposedly cool clubs where some idiot in sunglasses stands at the door with a list while a bunch of posers beg him to let them in. But he only picks the really beautiful people. In this case, he'd be picking the unbeautiful people. Anyway, there are 5 of us again. Well, maybe 4.5. I'll explain. This morning in the group there was a new person with us. A girl. At first I thought she was like 7 or 8, but it turns out she's 12. She's so small and skinny though, and she looks like a little kid. Her name is Martha. She sat in her chair hugging a stuffed rabbit. Her arms were wrapped around its middle and her chin rested between its long floppy ears. She didn't say a word the entire time. Cat Poop told us her name, but that was about it. I asked him about her later, though, during our session. Can't she talk? She can talk, he said. She just doesn't at the moment. Why? I asked him. You know I can't discuss her case with you, Cat Poop said. Come on, I prodded him. How am I supposed to make her feel like one of the family if I don't know anything about her? I noticed that you've been spending a lot of time with Sadie, he said. What do you guys do, spy on us all the time? I asked. Or do the nurses secretly film us? Does Nurse Goody have a camera hidden in her hair? A camera hidden in her hair? Do you feel like we spy on you? He countered. This is another therapist trick, answering a question with a question so that you have to keep talking. I decided to throw it back at him, so I asked, Why? Do you feel like you spy on us all the time? Cat Poop actually smiled a little when I did that. You know we don't, he said. We keep an eye on you, but we don't spy. That's big of you, I said. It's not like there's much we can do around here, though. You seem angry today, he said, ignoring the fact that I was being a smartass. Are you angry? Once he asked, I realized that I was angry. I hadn't really noticed, but I was. And now I was even more angry because he'd realized it before I had. I'm fine, I said. We sat there for a while with neither of us saying anything. I figured I could probably go the whole session that way, but Cat Poop had other ideas. Does Sadie remind you of someone? He asked me. Maybe a friend? I know what he was getting at. He wanted to know about Allie. I could have kicked myself for ever having mentioned her around him. She's nothing like Allie, I said, just to let him know I knew what he was hitting around about. How is she different? He said. Well, for one thing, Allie isn't locked up in a psych ward, I suggested. Is that the only difference? Asked Cat Poop. You think I'm in here because of Allie, don't you? I said. I think you're in here because you hurt yourself, he said. But you think I did it because of Allie. Did you? No, I said. Are the two of you close? Can't we talk about my dysfunctional family dynamics, I suggested, or my fear of intimacy? Is Allie your girlfriend? He asked. Can we please stop talking about Allie? I practically shouted. Jesus, can't you just get over that? Catpoop wrote something down on his stupid pad. I thought maybe he'd finally given up on the Allie questions, but he wasn't done yet. Have you and Allie been sexually intimate? Like that was any of his business. I wanted to slap him. I hate to admit it, but I'd actually almost started to think old Catpoop wasn't so bad. But as soon as he asked me that, I knew he was a dirty old man. I mean, he's only like 35 or something, but that's old enough to be a dirty old man. The point is, he just wanted to hear about teenagers getting it on. What kind of pervert are you? I asked him. Can't you just look at some porn? Or do you like hearing people talk about their sex lives? He didn't answer the question. I didn't expect him to. I'd caught him and he was probably embarrassed. He should be. I mean, some stuff is just private. How many times do I have to tell you that nothing is bothering me? I said. If nothing is bothering you, then it shouldn't be too difficult to talk about why you try to kill yourself, said Catpoop. Can you do that? Sure, I shot back. If I wanted to, I could. But I don't want to. Not with you. Are you saying you'd like another therapist? He asked me. I could arrange that if it would help. I almost told him to go ahead and do it. Then I thought about having to answer the same stupid questions all over again. As annoying as he was being right then, at least I had Catpoop trained a little bit. If I taught a new therapist, I'd be starting all over again. No, I said finally. I don't want a new one. I'm honored, said Catpoop. But I'm not talking about Allie or sex or anything or anything else that isn't any of your business, I warned him. Just so we're clear on that. Well, think about what you do want to talk about, he told me. We'll pick up tomorrow. I can't wait, I said as I stood up. Oh, and by the way, you need a haircut. As I turned to leave, I saw him reach up and touch his hair. Score one for Jeff, I thought as I shut the door behind me. When I got back to the lounge, the new girl, Martha, was there. She was sitting on the couch, still holding that rabbit in her lap. She was staring out the window at the snow. I was going to go back to my room, but something made me go over to Martha. She didn't even look at me when I sat down next to her. I kind of wanted to say hello to her. I mean, I know it's not easy your first few days in the nut house. I like your rabbit, I said. Martha stopped rubbing the rabbit's ears and looked at me. Does he have a name? She nodded, but didn't say anything. He's your best friend, isn't he? I said, and she nodded again. I have a best friend, too, I told her. Her name is Allie, and I tell her everything. Do you tell your buddy everything? Martha nodded and held the bunny close to her, like she was protecting him. I bet he's a good listener, I said. Then I told her, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. We can just sit here together. She buried her face in a rabbit's fur, but I could see she was smiling. We sat like that for about an hour. I talked about some stuff, nothing important, and she sat there and listened. It didn't matter that she didn't say anything. I think she was happy just having company. I guess having a stuffed bunny for your only friend can get a little lonely. Oh, I'm saying this, I'm genuinely saying this, but I'm starting to think Jeff is starting to come around to caring for, at least, for right now, he's caring about Martha right now, based on how he just interacted with her. I think this place is literally starting to grow on him. Even though it's just Martha currently, and also Sadie. I feel like this place is just growing off on him, if I'm being honest. I like that. Because he's growing as a person right now, the way I'm seeing it. Slowly, but surely he's growing as a person. Day 14. My bandages came off today. I didn't know they were coming off, so it was a little bit of a shock when Goody Two Shoes called me into the medical room after breakfast and pulled out her scissors. And it was even more of a shock when she unwrapped the gauze and I saw the stitches. I don't know what I thought would be there. Maybe some tape or something. But there were little black crisscrosses along my wrists, like tiny railroad tracks, or animal prints. It looked like a mouse had run across my arm with muddy feet. The stitches came out too. That hurt a little because the skin had healed around them. But Goody's whiz with her scissors and tweezers, and she got them out pretty quickly. Now I just have these reddish scars there. I guess I always will, although Goody says they'll fade over time. I don't know if I want them to fade. That probably sounds totally freaky, but part of me doesn't want to forget what it felt like, even though it hurt. If I forget about the pain, I might also forget that it was a really stupid idea to do it in the first place. My mother told me once that having babies is like that. I guess she was in labor for something like 16 hours when she had me. Also, it was the middle of July, and being super fat in the hottest part of the year wasn't her idea of fun. All in all, she said, it wasn't as beautiful an experience as they make you think of having a baby is, and afterwards she told my dad she would never do it again. But she apparently forgot how much it hurt because 2 years later, she had my sister. Although that time she planned it so she'd be her fattest in the winter, but she could wear a bunch of clothes to cover it, and she wouldn't mind being warm all the time. And she had them load her up on painkillers the minute she started having contractions. Amanda only took like 2 hours to pop out, anyway. A fact my mother reminds me of whenever she wants to make me feel guilty. Then I remind her that nobody told her to go and get pregnant. Damn, bro. Didn't have to do your mama dirty like that, dude. Seriously, goddamn. Getting back to the story. Not that I'm really comparing having kids to trying to kill yourself. I'm just saying that sometimes forgetting how much things hurt makes you do them again. And that's not always such a hot idea. I'm not even sure I want kids, by the way, even if I'm not the one who has to be pregnant. It seems too risky. I mean, what if you end up with a kid that's just plain bad? Or stupid? It's not like you can give it away or put it in a garage sale or something. You're pretty much stuck with it for a long time. I know now they have all these tests they can do so you can find out if your kid has 3 arms or a wonky heart or whatever. But you can't test for everything. You can't test for crazy, for example, or for bad taste in music and clothes and stuff. You can't know if your kid is going to be someone you would actually want to have hanging around. You just have to take your chances. That seems like a pretty big gamble to me. Not that I'd be having any kids right away, anyway. I'm only 15, I know. I'm only 15. I know there are a lot of 15-year-olds out there having babies, but not me. I don't need to mess up my life any more than it already is. So no babies for me. I'm glad we got that straightened out. I don't know how I got from my stitches to babies. Sometimes my mind goes in weird directions. Or maybe it's the meds, which I'm still on. But Cat Poop says these are just antidepressants and nothing too heavy duty. Not like the Pez. Anyway, after I got my stitches out, I went to show Sadie. I know I kind of freaked out the other day when she mentioned them, but the truth is she's really the only person who hasn't treated them like they're a big deal, and that's sort of cool. She asked if she could touch my scars, and I said it was okay. She ran her fingers over them like they were puppies, really softly, like she was afraid she might open them up again. I don't have any scars, she said, and she sounded kind of sad. Do you remember almost drowning? I asked her. It's something I've been wondering for a while, but I wasn't sure if it was something I should ask. Now, since she was touching my scars and all, well, I figured it was as good a time as any. I remember everything was green and quiet, she said. At first, when the air ran out, my chest burned, but then the pain just went away and everything was really quiet. It felt like I was flying. The next thing I remember is lying on the grass. Sam was breathing into my mouth, and all these people were staring at me. I asked her who Sam was, and she said he was the guy who saved her. He'd seen her jump into the lake with all her clothes on, and he thought it was a little weird. When she went under and didn't come up, he jumped in and pulled her out again. He's called a couple of times, Sadie told me, to see how I am. After that, I had to go see old Cat Poop. The first thing I noticed was that something about him looked different. You got a haircut, I said once I realized what it was. Yes, he said. I wanted him to say that I'd been right about his needing to deal with his hair, but instead he launched right into therapy time. He reminded me that my parents were coming tomorrow for their weekly visit. Then he asked me how I was getting along with the other kids. I told him I was getting along fine, and he seemed happy with that. I thought things were going too easily. Then Cat Poop said, I see your bandages are off. Like he didn't know. I'm pretty sure Goody would never have removed them without his permission. I looked down and said, I guess they are. Until then I hadn't even noticed. How about that? How do you feel about seeing the cuts? He asked me. I shrugged. I guess it means my career as a hand modeler is over, I said. That might take some getting used to. The doc looked at my face for a long time, so I said, Seriously, it doesn't bother me. They're just cuts. I think he was trying to figure out how big of a lie I was telling. The thing is, I wasn't telling one at all. Seeing the cuts really doesn't bother me. Honestly, it's better than having your wrists wrapped up like a mummy. Besides, as long as I wear long sleeves forever, I'll hardly ever see them. Alright, Cat Poop said, but I don't think he was totally convinced. Then that's it for today. All in all, it was a pretty good day. For one thing, I got Cat Poop to cut his hair, which I think is a totally huge achievement. Plus, I got my bandages off and didn't freak out about it. I think I can honestly say that for the first time since I got here, I'm feeling more or less okay. Chapter 15, Day 15. So my parents came again today. This time things went much better. At least I think they did. The only weird thing was that my mother kept staring at my wrists. Somehow I'd forgotten about the scars already, and I wore a t-shirt. I tried to cross my arms and tuck my hands in, but I was afraid they'd think I was being hostile, so instead I just clasped my hands together and tried to keep the scar's sides in. Still, she kept looking down there. Cat Poop started off the session by asking my parents each to name one thing about me that they were proud of. You can imagine how excited I was about that, but actually, it wasn't too cringe-inducing. My father said that he's always been proud of the fact that I do well in school, which is a pretty dad thing to say. It's very neutral, and not too touchy-feely. My mom said she was proud of everything I did. Cat Poop asked her to be more specific, which made me want to laugh, but I didn't. And she said she guessed she was most proud of the fact that I was a good person. I'm not sure what a good person is exactly. On the one hand, it could be someone who always plays by the rules, but someone can follow the rules and still be a real jerk, you know? In fact, some of the biggest idiots I know are people who follow the rules, usually because they make you feel like crap when you don't. Or maybe a good person is someone who's always doing good things for other people. That sure isn't me. I'd probably get kicked out of Boy Scouts if I was in it, because I wouldn't help old ladies across the street, if you get my drift. Not that I'm a jerk or anything, it's just that other people aren't always my main priority in life. I kind of wish Cat Poop had asked my mom to be even more specific, but I think he thought she'd done the best she could. Instead, he asked me to tell my parents 2 things about them that I was thankful for. I thought it was a little unfair making me say 2 things when they'd had to come up with just 1 each, but I gave it a shot. First, I said I was thankful that they always made sure I had everything I needed, like clothes and food and a house. Second, I said I was thankful that they never made me feel bad about myself. I was thinking about Sadie when I said that, about how her dad always made her feel like she was a problem. I also thought about Alice and her mother's boyfriend. I still have a hard time believing that any mom would let that happen to her kid, even though you read about it in the paper and see it on the news all the time. Until I met Alice, I always assumed it happened to other people, as in people I didn't know. Unless there are a lot more people than I thought there were. After we talked a little more, they said they had a surprise for me. Amanda was with them. Cat Poop wanted to talk to my parents some more, so he told me to go into the room next to his office, which in turn is almost which it turns out is almost exactly like his office, except there was no picture of a dog carrying a dead bird. I guess it's for another shrink, although it looked like no one had used it in a long time. Amanda was waiting there. When I came in, she jumped up and gave me a big hug. Watch it, I told her. First Mom and now you. This hugging stuff is starting to scare me. You jerk, she said, but not in an angry way. You scared me. Don't ever do that again. I still wasn't sure how much she knew about why I was in the hospital, so I was a little nervous. Again, I tried to hide my wrist by sticking my hands in the pockets of my jeans. It's okay, Amanda said. They told me. Besides, it's not like you could hide the bloodstains on the carpet. There was a lot of it. I honestly cannot help but think of Smooth Criminal because of that line just now. Getting back to the story. They let you see it? I asked. She shook her head. I snuck in. At first they tried to tell me you sliced yourself open. You sliced yourself open in a CD with a box cutter. She rolled her eyes and I laughed. That's totally something my parents would do. I could just see Amanda demanding to know the real story. Are you really okay? She asked me. Sure, I said. I'm fine. She gave me a look like she didn't believe me, but she didn't say anything. I knew she wanted to believe that everything's all right, and even though she probably had a million other questions, she didn't ask any of them then. Then I noticed her hair. I dyed it, Amanda said. No kidding, I said. Had she ever? Her hair is naturally this kind of blondish red, just like my dad's. Now it was a lot more red. In fact, it was really red, like a cherry popsicle. Relax, she said, but I didn't say anything for a minute. It's just Kool-Aid, but don't tell Mom, she thinks it's permanent. I laughed. It felt good. I hadn't had a real laugh since I woke up in the hospital. I won't, I promised. Why are you torturing her this time? Amanda shook her head. No reason, she said. It's just fun. That's what I love about my sister. She does things just because she wants to. I know you're not supposed to think you're not supposed to think your little sister is cool, but by now I think it's pretty obvious that I don't exactly do things by the book. Amanda sat down on the couch and I sat in the chair across from her. What's the word around school? I asked her. My heart raced a little as I waited for her to answer. I didn't really care what people think about me most of the time, but disappearing and ending up in the hospital are a little more serious than breaking out in zits or wearing the wrong sneakers. That depends on who you ask, said Amanda. The popular theory is mono, although I've heard that you have cancer, hepatitis, and maybe a brain tumor. Oh, and for about a day and a half you'd run away because Mom and Dad caught you doing drugs. Excellent, I said. Does anyone know the real reason? If they do, they didn't hear it from me, she told me. I'm sticking it with mono. Then I asked her the one question I was really interested in hearing the answer to. Have you seen Allie around? Yeah, Amanda said. But there was something in her voice that sounded weird, as if she really didn't want to talk about it. So, of course, I made her. It turns out Amanda saw Allie at lunch about a week after I came to the hospital. She thought Allie would want to know that I was okay, even if she couldn't tell her exactly what had happened. So she went out over to her and started talking. But all she did was kind of nod, Amanda said. She was sitting with this guy, and it was like she didn't really want to talk to me. I told Amanda that we'd had a fight about something, but that it wasn't a big deal, and Allie would get over it. I know Amanda didn't buy it, but for once she let it go. Like I said, she's pretty cool. Not that I'd ever let her know that. I have to keep her in line somehow, or she'll think she's the boss of everything. Anyway, you've got to get out of here soon, said Amanda. They're driving me nuts. I knew she meant my mother and father. I could just imagine what they were like to live with now. I'm surprised they hadn't installed security cameras in Amanda's room. And now her Kool-Aid hair made even more sense. Knowing Amanda, she'd done it just to make them worry. Sorry about that, I said. And I really was. I mean, it's not Amanda's fault that I'm in here. I can handle it, she assured me. We just sat there for a minute, like we ran out of things to say. But it wasn't awkward or weird. It was kind of nice. Amanda was treating me the way she always does, not like I'd done something crazy. Then Cat Poop opened the door and my parents came in. I don't know what he said to them, but they were all smiling at him, like circus clowns. I wanted to hand them some balloons. We'll see you next week, my mother said. She looked like she was going to hug me again, but I moved so that Cat Poop was between us and just said, Okay, see you then. No one else tried to hug me, although I knew Amanda would have if my parents hadn't been there, and that would have been okay. They all said goodbye and left. I'm sure they were just so happy to get out as I would have been if I was leaving with them. It made me think of Mrs. Christensen. Mrs. Christensen is about 17 million years old. She's a friend of my grandmother's, and she lives in a home now because her entire family is dead. Every Christmas we have to go visit her. We take her a fruitcake and some presents, like slippers and chocolates and whatever. We spend about an hour with her, and it's the longest hour in the history of time. The home smells like old people, even though they put up all the they put up all these decorations. It's still depressing. Mrs. Christensen always acts like we're her real family, but we aren't, and I can't wait to get out of there. I bet that's how my parents and Amanda feel. I know I would if one of them was in here. I'd just wait to get it over with and leave with a fruitcake. Oh my god, we're in here like a popsicle. I want one now. Hey, if you got a popsicle in your house, in your freezer, go ahead and get one. I don't care. It's up to you. Day 16. Before my parents left yesterday, they gave me a care package from my grandmother. Actually, they left it with Cat Poop and he gave it to me today. They probably had to run it by the drug-sniffing dogs or something to make sure there was nothing in it. I'm not surprised to have. I'm not surprised. I'm not supposed. Hold on, I messed that line up. Let me read that line again. They probably had to run it by the drug-sniffing dogs or something to make sure there was nothing in it I'm not supposed to have. Like my grandma have stuck it would have stuck packets of heroin in there, or porn. Anyway, she sent me chocolate chip cookies, some peanut butter fudge, and $1. She always put $1 in when she sends me or my sister something. Cards, letters, whatever. It must be an old lady thing to do. My dad says she always gave him and his brother $1 when she wrote to them too, until they had kids of their own. Now she sends us the dollars. I guess she figures my dad doesn't need them. I shared the cookies and fudge with everyone else, but only because I knew that otherwise I'd just eat it all and then feel sick. Besides, we had movie night tonight. They let us watch a DVD of a movie about this guy who spent every summer living with grizzly bears in Alaska. It's a true story. Every year he hiked into the wilderness and followed the bears around until fall came, and they were in a hibernation. Until one year when a bear ate him. You'd think it would be all sad, someone being eaten by a bear. The thing is, though, this guy really loved those bears. He loved everything about them, even when they did stuff that looked totally mean, like fight over food or kill a rival bear's cubs. It was like they were his family, and he forgave them for their bear behavior because he knew they couldn't help it. I think he probably even would have forgiven the bear that ate him. They interviewed a lot of people in this movie, and most of them said they just couldn't understand why this guy would want to spend so much time with bears. Some of them thought he believed he was a bear because he couldn't handle who he really was. I think they're wrong. I think he just loved being with the bears because they didn't make him feel bad. I mean, sure, this guy was a little nuts. You have to, you'd have to be You'd have to be to spend your whole life following bears around. But I did it too. When he was with the bears, they didn't care that he was kind of weird, or that he'd gotten into trouble for drinking too much and using drugs, which apparently he did a lot of. They didn't ask him a bunch of stupid questions about how he left, or why he did what he did. They just let him be who he was. I guess if you think about it, it was kind of a strange movie for them to let us watch. But I think that was a lot of us in here could relate to it. Juliet started to cry when they talked about how rangers shot the bear that ate the guy, and then cut it open to make sure he was really inside. Personally, I think they killed the bear because they were afraid of it. That's what people do. Kill the things they're inside of. Here's what I thought. One person should figure out that if they go around bothering bears, chances are they're going to end up bear snacks. Second, people suck. There I go again, jumping from fudge to bears. I swear, sometimes it feels like there's this monkey in my head who runs around turning the dials and changing channels on me. 1 minute I'm sitting around eating chocolate chip cookies, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about I'm thinking about bears. Like I said though, I think a lot of us relate to those bears. We're in here because someone, our parents, our doctors, the people who supposedly love us, are afraid of us. We're in the whack job zoo so that everyone can look at us without getting close enough to get hurt. Man, that's messed up. I wonder what cat poop would do if the next time he starts nosing around in my brain. I just bite him? Day 17, the penultimate day before the end of this part. Alert the media. Martha spoke to me today. I was sitting with her on the couch reading, and out of nowhere she put her hand on my wrist and said, "Frex." I was so shocked that I stopped reading and just looked at her. She touched my wrist again. "Frex," she said, and she was telling me the name of something. "Frex," I said. "Frex," I said, and she nodded. Then she touched her chest and said it again. "Frex." At first I thought I should call for cat poop, but then I decided that might scare Martha if I got all excited. So I waited and she rubbed her fingers along the cuts on one of my wrists. "Frex," she said. "Frex." I didn't know if she was talking about my wrist, my cut, or nothing in particular. It was sort of like a scene in one of those sci-fi movies where a human and an alien are trying to communicate and neither really know what the other is saying. Like the alien says, "Frex," and the human doesn't know if it means, "Don't worry, I won't hurt you," or "I've laid an egg in your stomach and it's about to hatch, so kiss your butt goodbye." Martha touched her chest again where her heart is, and repeated herself a couple of times. Frex, Frex, Frex. Just like that. She sounded almost like she was singing the song. That's when I got it. All of a sudden, it made sense. She was talking about hurting. My scar in her heart. Whatever Frex is to her, it means something that hurts. Who knows how she came up with that word? I guess it doesn't really matter. It's her word, and now I know what it means. That's all that happened. There wasn't any big emotional scene or anything. Martha didn't all of a sudden tell me her life story and solve the mystery of why she doesn't talk, but it was kind of cool anyway. Later on, I told Cadpoop what had happened. I thought he'd jump up and down and push his glasses up, but he just smiled and nodded. Did you already know? I asked him, but he shook his head. No, he said. You should be proud of yourself. She opened up to you. Why should I feel proud? I asked him. I didn't do anything. She's the one who did the talking. You let her know it was okay to tell you, he said. Whatever. I hate to rain on his parade, but I didn't do anything. I'm not going to get all excited about her saying Frex. I still don't know why she would talk to me and not other people. But how weird is it that she made up that word? Frex. Hurt. I guess she was saying that her heart hurts because of what's happened to her. I wonder if she'll ever really be able to talk about it, or if she's so inside herself that this is as good as it gets. Like Alice. In other news, I forgot that Allie's birthday was yesterday. Not that it's really my fault. You don't exactly keep track of the dates so well around here. The days all kind of run into each other, like one big long one that never ends. But today I happened to look at the date on the newspaper in the nurse's station and realized I'd missed Allie's birthday. She turned 16. I'll be 16 this summer, so she's got half a year out on me. That never bothered her, though. She always called herself the older woman. I wonder what she did for her birthday. Actually, I don't wonder at all. I know what she did. She spent it with Burke. He's her boyfriend. He probably took her to the movies or maybe out for pizza. I bet he bought her some stupid present she normally wouldn't even like, and I bet she gushed over it like it was the best thing ever. It made me sick how she gets all stupid over him. She was never like that before. She never let a guy turn her into something she's not. Then Burke came along and everything changed. Everything. I don't get how someone could become a different person overnight, but Allie did. It was like there was this whole other girl living inside of her, and one night that girl broke through and took over. One day we were doing everything together, and the next, everything was over. She just threw it all away. The worst part is you know they're not going to be together forever. I mean, come on, she's 15. Okay, 16. Still, it's not like they're going to get married or anything. Even if they last a couple of years, which they won't, she'll go to one college and he'll go to another, and pretty soon they'll forget all about each other. That's what always happens. That's why teenage dating is so dumb, because it's doomed to fail. You'd think people would have learned that by now, but I guess they haven't. They go right on falling in love and thinking it's going to survive high school. Allie and Burke. True love always. Whatever. Anyway, happy birthday, Allie. I hope it was a good one. And now the final chapter for this part. Chapter 18. Or Day 18. Alright, Lion Blade, have a good rest of your night. Day 18. As Sadie says, and then there were 4. Again. Today in group, Catpoop announced that it was Bones' last day in the program. When he said it, Juliet's face kind of fell, but she didn't say anything. I don't think she's been quite so excited about him since he made fun of Alice. Good for Bone that he's getting out, I guess. I know he's a little scared about it because he said so in group. I was really surprised that he said anything. I mean, we've talked some, but it's not like he's ever said very much about himself. But today he did. It turns out his parents don't want him to come home. They don't think they can trust him not to get into trouble. As usual, he didn't explain what kind of trouble he meant. But by now I'm used to not knowing anything about Bone, and I didn't ask. Nobody did. I think we like that he's our mystery man. It means we can make up whatever story we want about him. Anyway, he's going to stay with his older brother and his brother's wife. They live in a little town somewhere in Arizona and own a gas station. Bone's going to work at the gas station until he figures out what he wants to be when he grows up. That's not what he's afraid of, though. He's afraid that people will find out about him being in a psychiatric hospital and think he's some kind of criminal or something. He is afraid they'll tell their kids to stay away from him and cross the street when they see him. Don't talk to the crazy man, honey. He might bite you. Coming from someone covered in tattoos, this seemed a little strange. I mean, you can see tattoos. You can see tattoos. You can't see crazy. If I was him, I'd be more worried about people thinking he was in a gang or something. Later, after my session with Cat Poop, I went into the lounge. Bone was in there watching a talk show, one of those with a host so perky you want to slap her. The topic was people who wanted to make over their friends who they thought looked too weird. One of the girls on the show wanted her sister to stop dressing like what she called a punk. She said people made fun of her when she went outside, and that people thought she was a Satan worshipper and stomped on kittens or something. The host kept frowning and shaking her head. Then they brought the girl out. She was totally goth. Her hair was all black, and she had on pancake makeup and blood red lipstick. She was a little overweight, and she looked like Robert Smith from The Cure. I thought she was kind of cute. As soon as she came out, the audience started booing, like she'd murdered her best friend or slept with her dad's new wife. Then the host asked her why she dressed like she did, and she said, "Because I like to." The audience booed again, and the sister screamed, "People think she's a lesbian!" The goth girl covered her face with her hands like she was all embarrassed. Then they went to a commercial, and when they came back from telling us more about how fresh we'd all feel if we used panty shields with wings, they'd done the makeovers. They hauled out all of these people whose friends thought they looked too strange, and now they all looked like they'd been trapped inside a J. Crew store for a night and come out different people. They saved the goth girl for last, and when they brought her out, she was wearing this flowered dress and big dangly earrings and Mary Jane's shoes. When her sister saw her, she started crying, and the audience gave her this standing ovation because she didn't look freaky anymore. When she sat down, the host flashed a series of pictures of her, starting with her baby picture and going on up until high school. The audience oohed and awed at how pretty she was as a little girl, all blonde and curls and wide eyes. Then the last photo was of her all gothed out, and the audience hissed. The goth girl looked really unhappy, and the host asked her if she liked her new look. She said she hated it, and everyone got really angry, like they'd paid for the makeover themselves. Then this guy stood up and said, "I never asked you out looking the way you looked before." The girl looked at the guy for a minute, and then she said, "What makes you think I'd ever want someone like you to ask me out?" Then she turned to her sister and said, "So now that I look like this, I'm okay? I'm not a freak because I look like you do?" "Well, you can go fuck yourself." Only, of course, they bleeped out the good part because it's daytime TV, and we all know that no one in America swears. Spoiler alert! Even though not really a spoiler alert. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Hello, Bayou. How you doing tonight? The guy she talked back to just stared at her like she'd kicked him in the balls, and her sister was crying her eyes out. The girl looked at them both and said, "What a bunch of losers." Then she walked off the set. The host started smiling again, then cut to a commercial for pork, the other white meat. It was great. Bone and I were dying. Then Bone said, Jesus Christ, people still think what you look like is who you are. I looked at the tattoos up and down his arms. I'd seen them before, can't miss them, but I'd never really looked at them. When I did, I saw that between the flaming skulls and hearts were the characters from Alice in Wonderland. He has the Red Queen and the Dormouse on one arm, and the Mad Hatter and March Hare on the other one. One forearm has that picture of Alice with her neck all stretched out from eating the magic mushroom. Is that who you are? I asked Bone, pointing to Alice. He laughed. No, he said. This is who I am. He lifted his shirt, and on his back was the White Rabbit, wearing his waistcoat and looking at his watch. It was just like the illustration from the book. Only standing next to him, back to back, was another White Rabbit, wearing a leather motorcycle jacket and boots, smoking a cigar. That's me, said Boone. Always running. Always late. I had it put on my back because no one can see it unless I show it to them. The ones on the outside are for people to stare at, but I keep the one I really love hidden. Why two of them? I asked him. Yin and yang, he said. Dark and light. One's the good rabbit, one's the naughty rabbit. Which one is which? I asked. He laughed again. Both, he said. It's kind of a bipolar thing, like me. Then he got up and left before I could ask him anything else, just like the rabbit does to Alice. I sat there for a while, thinking about the goth girl. Actually, I was thinking about the opposite of her. How people think that if you look normal, then you are. One time, Alice and I skipped school, One time, Allie and I skipped school and went to see the foreign film called Los Diablos, where these villagers formed a glowing blue ball and peeled pieces off of it to see what was inside. Only the ball was really radioactive, and they all died from the poison. I think that's what happens when you look too deep inside for the truth. The poison comes out and you die, even though you have beautiful glowing pieces of blue truth in your fingers. And anyway, the truth isn't all that great. I mean, what's the truth? Planes falling out of the sky, buses blowing up, and ripping little kids into millions of pieces? Wait, I said that wrong, didn't I? No, I said it right. Okay. Buses blowing up and ripping little kids into millions of pieces. 12-year-olds raping people and then shooting them in the head so they can't tell. I can't watch the news anymore or look at the papers. It's like whoever sits up there in heaven has this big bag of really crappy stuff, and once or twice a day, she or he reaches in and sprinkles a little bit of it over the world, and it makes everything go crazy, like fairy dust that's past its expiration date. And that's the end of part 2. For part 3, I'll be reading chapters 19 I'll be reading chapters 19, days 19 through 27. And trust me when I say you thought there was some good moments here. Let's just say things are just about to pick up. You'll know exactly what I mean when we get to it. When we get to them. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Forrest Walpole, signing off.